what's different this time around? I mean, sustainability has been on the agenda for 26 years, or for 26 conferences. Now, is it different this time as the pandemic changed things? What about the recent weather extremes we're seeing? Is it a change in young people's attitudes? What do you think is actually going to really foster a big change this time?
I think it's probably all of the above, Gerard. I mean, I think COP24 in Paris, there was a massive sea change, and the arguments changed. And immediately after that, if you remember, we came out of Paris, and then we had a year of Greta speaking truth to power. And I, like many other people, have probably watched the documentaries on her. I mean, what an amazing young woman, speaking from the heart, telling us to act like our house was on fire. Very simple language, very direct, very powerful, because she writes, she's still with us, of course, writes all of her own speeches. And she was doing her year of UN conferences and getting great exposure and really exposing the issue. And then I think very sort of overlapping with that, we had David Attenborough and some of his documentaries, and people started to see what we were doing to the planet, we were doing to the marine environment, the pictures of turtles with plastic around their necks. And people started connecting with this in an emotional way as well as a factual way. So the IPCC report and the Code Red for Humanity, that the report we've just had, everything's starting to align, hearts and minds. And I think this has just built up a head of steam now. I think we've seen the press and the media no longer hiding behind this nonsense of balanced reporting. Actually it's happening. There's an acceptance it's man-made, and the linkages are now being made in the media as well, with understanding the difference between climate and weather. And actually we've had so many of these horrendous events, whether that's excessive rainfall and flooding. We've had the fires in the US and in Australia, and the facts are that these are becoming more prevalent. They're becoming bigger in impact. They're becoming more frequent. So, and it's all getting a bit close to home. You specifically mentioned COVID. I think COVID has advanced the agenda in as much as it's shown how quickly we can respond, and how it showed how, particularly in terms of something that probably everybody listening to this will relate to, travel. We stopped traveling, and 18 months ago I was sat in a meeting with one of my senior managers and senior leaders in the organization, and he said to me, "Julia, why did you never tell me that I could save all this time, all this expense? I could increase business efficiency by us using IT and virtual meetings and virtual working." And of course, Gerard, I can see you're smiling at me on the screen. I know this is sound only, but of course my answer was, I did. But you didn't want to hear. You were giving me all the answers of, I've got to see the whites of the customer's eyes, or it's all about relationships, and it's all about, and we know going forward this is a hybrid. But what COVID did was it took the choice away, and it forced us to change. And I think that has been one of the most positive legacies that we will get out of COVID.
Yeah, I think it just I like your summary on that, the COVID. And the other thing is, I think it's quite useful to sort of remember, and our industry will know this, that as an industry we actually responded very well to COVID. Probably better than most industries. I know, obviously, if you were in hospitality, you had your challenges. So that that's not the point I'm trying to make. The point is, as an industry, I was extremely interested in the way we came together. Everybody came together. There was a lot of work with the CLC through government, but the industry itself actually responded very well. And I think you know, if that can happen again, and the point you're making about climate change, because, you know, there's loads of statistics about climate change and construction. You know, concrete represents about 8 or 10% of the world's CO2. You know, we contribute heavily in what we do. So if we can bring that response together collectively, I think that could be very good. Jose, you know, what sort of things are you trying to or hoping to see from COP26 that will carry on this sort of move towards everybody working on this?
I think a key aspect is going to be the agreement between all countries, and between all countries is of course needs to include the most polluters, the richest countries, the impact that has on all countries, including the poorest countries that will have less resources and will be more severely affected. I think a key element is going to be those financial and financing agreements at an international level, in the same way that, as Julia mentioned, you know, COVID as an issue, I think that has in a way brought us all together. Climate change, there is a deeper sense of realization. You know, we are all on this together, and it needs everybody to chip in and certainly avoid by all means a race to the bottom. This is not about a race to the bottom, it's a race to the top, and it's a race to the top that we have to get there all together. Further discussions and agreements on, you know, carbon reduction targets and pathways. I think that there has been also realization of some of the huge financial and financing risks ahead, and that includes, you know, people with all the large real estate portfolios, insurers, financial institutions, pensions. You know, everybody, I think, that realizes the risks. Some of them may only be focused on the financial elements of that. As long as they take action, I'm fine with that. And an agreement of moving away, as many countries are already doing, on some of the most pollutant fuels and that are affecting the natural resources across the globe.